Hi, today we are talking about men's and women's brains and why they are so different and why we are so misunderstood in relationships, and it causes all of us lots of problems. Men's brains are made up of little boxes, and they have a box for the car, a box for the money, a box for work, a box for you, and a box for just everything. They just have a box for everything. But the rule is for the men that the boxes don't touch any of the other boxes. When a man discusses a particular subject, he pulls out that box and he only discusses what's in that box, being very, very careful not to touch any of the other boxes. Then we have the woman's brain. Women's brains are very, very different. They look something like this. Tangled, jumbled wires. Because for a woman, everything is connected to everything. Her car is connected to her job, and her job is connected to her money, and her money is connected to her partner, and her partner is connected to her kids, and her kids are connected to her mother, and you get it. Everything is connected to everything, and her brain is just like overthinking, and the wires are going bzzz. It's like the internet superhighway, bzzz. And it's all driven by energy that we call emotion. It's one of the reasons women tend to remember everything. So if you take an event and you connect it to an emotion and it burns into your memory, then you can remember it forever. The same thing happens to men, but it doesn't happen as often. You know why? Because they don't really care. Women tend to care about everything. Did you know that men have a box in their brain that most women are unaware of, and that this particular box has nothing in it? Yes, I said it, nothing in it. There has been scientific research done on this by the relationship expert Mark Gungor, and he called it the nothing box. And out of all the boxes that men have, this is their favorite box, the nothing box. And they will go to it every time they can, especially when they've had a stressful day. That's why, ladies, a man can think about absolutely nothing. Have you ever observed a man watching TV and he keeps changing the channels over and over, and it drives you crazy? Because he just sits there staring at the screen with that look on his face, and when you ask him, "What are you watching?" he replies, "Nothing." And when you say, "Well, what are you thinking about?" and he replies, "Nothing." That's because he really is, ladies. That's the way a man unwinds. He thinks about nothing. Whereas a woman, we need to talk about our problems. And nothing drives a woman more crazy than when a man does nothing. All jokes aside, here is what's really going on. Men and women really don't understand each other. And that's because many generations ago, all the studies were done on the male brain because it was thought to be a brain is a brain, which now they are discovering is very untrue. In fact, women have a larger limbic system in the brain than men. So we can make things seem bigger than they are because the limbic system is the part of the brain that involves our behavioural and emotional responses, especially when it comes to behaviours we need for survival. We do this because it's in our original design and is a safety mechanism that you might have heard of called fight or flight. So it's a survival skill for women that if it's used for the right reasons at the right time, it's useful. But if it's not, you're making stories up in your head, then that can keep a woman feeling stuck in that story that's not really true or serving you. Women also have the pre-retinoganglion cell, which means we see more of the finer detail in things, such as we can pick up, if someone isn't telling us the truth, like if they say, I'm okay, and they're not, we can see the minute little differences, in their smile and in their eyes. We have more white matter in our brain, which allows us to multitask and process things faster. Women are more inferential, and we tend to put more meaning where there is none. Men are more literal. For example, if you had two mates watching the footy together and one mate says to the other, gee, it's really hot today, the other mate will look over at him and just reply, yeah, it is. And they keep going on watching what they were watching. But if there was a woman in the room, she would interpret that different. And she would think, oh, he wants me to turn the fan on. So she'll get up and turn the fan on, and in her head, she would be saying, bloody lazy men, can't get off the couch and turn the fan on, seriously. And we just go off in this craziness story. But the true fact is, he didn't ask her to turn the fan on, and therefore she made the story up in her head, because women overthink everything because they see everything connected to everything. And that's usually why they get so upset with men. The men were simply just having a conversation, and that is it. We find that so hard to understand because as women, we put meaning to everything where for men, there isn't meant to be one for most of the things they talk about. But women's brains typically work best when we rely upon more verbal skills, as opposed to men's brains are more focused on concrete tasks. So now you can see there are many differences, and there's so many more that I didn't touch on today. But would it make sense to you now why we are different and we need different learnings when it comes to our healings of our issues and beliefs? It's like we have different hardware in our brains. Just imagine that a man was a Samsung and a woman was an iPhone. We both essentially do the same thing. We just do it different ways. And what do you think would happen if you tried to put an Apple app onto an Android phone? It wouldn't work. It's a different device. So the same thing when it comes to changing our beliefs and how we perceive the world. Everything out there has been created by a man, and there's nothing wrong with that, other than it doesn't always work as well for a woman's brain. Hundreds of years ago, psychologists, hypnotherapists, NLP practitioners were all coming to be. Only men were allowed into the medicine and science. And all of those things are effective to a certain degree. However, nothing is providing that deep, long-lasting and fast effective change for women that we are looking for. And it's partly because of our gender differences and how this affects the way women perceive things hasn't been taken into consideration. To be truthfully honest, they have only studied these differences in the last 20 or so years, and they still don't always study on both men's and women's brains separately, as there is a budget and a time frame. So to get the results fast, it's easier to study a man's brain, as the scientists say, well, one that was on the Oprah Winfrey show mentioned that a woman's brain is complex and we have cycles and hormones and things going on that would delay their research. So you wonder why there is so much confusion around this subject, why men and women don't understand each other, especially in relationships. So I will talk to you about the differences more another time. But just to conclude today, by understanding men are different to women and they run off a blueprint and we need a pink print. So doesn't it make sense that we as women need a specifically designed female formulated method for resolving any of our issues and limiting beliefs? Otherwise, you're just going to keep feeling stuck, like you're on that little hamster wheel going round and round in circles every day and not understanding why you feel the way you feel, even when you have tried to seek help from other modalities or therapies that weren't originally designed for women. So I hope this is starting to make some sense for some of you that are feeling stuck and are interested in trying something different to what you have been trying in the past. And if it hasn't been working for you, then just send me a text, a message, and we'll have a little conversation to see what's going on for you and if I can help you in any way. I would love to do that for you. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please just put them in the comments or reach out to me and I will be happy to answer them as best to my knowledge as possible for you. Thank you, and you got this.